Hey yo, it's Mr. Cheeks, otherwise known as Rayo, back again for another video. Today I'll be explaining gathering to you, and a few tips that might help you gather fast, but don't share these tips with your friends, otherwise they're gonna get further than you in the game, and in an MMORPG, that's the most dangerous thing you could do. Now, how does gathering work? Gathering has a destiny board tree dedicated to itself, so you first have to gather tier 2 resources, unlock the tier 2 weapons, or I mean the tools, then you can branch out, either fishing, which is a little bit of fun, but I haven't done it personally. You can do the fiber harvester, the ore miner, the animal skinner, the lumberjack, or the quarrier. Now, what does these each three do? How do you gather and how do you level up this fast? Because as you can see, I'm already tier 8 in 3 of them. Well, I'm a slave to the game anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Now, first of all, you have to gather tier 3 resources or tier 2 ones to unlock the tier 3 skinning knife. You have to do tier 3 to get tier 4 to get tier 5 to get tier 6. But the secret no one wants you to know is if you reach tier 3, so let's say you have a tier 3 skinning knife, you can take up tier 4 resources. But the only thing is you pick it up slower, and you also can't pick up enchanted stuff. So let's quickly come down here, and let's say you have ore mining to tier 5, you're using the tier 5 pickaxe, you can gather tier 4, tier 4.1, 2, 3, you can gather tier 5, 5.1, 2, 3, and you can also gather tier 6, but you can't gather 6.1, so enchanted resources. How Albion works is, you can already gather enchanted resources, you don't have to enchant them separately. There's a possibility to find it from the ground, find it from a random node, honestly anywhere. Now, what I recommend doing is putting learning points on, so when you actually get to the, threshold where you can learn the item or do it fast, just use learning points. If you don't use learning points, you're basically cucking yourself. Holy shit, I would have killed myself if I had to gotten to 100%, but with learning points you only have to do 20% of the work. Yes, you heard me right, only 20% of the work. Now, I do want to point out that the best zones to gather in are not the ones you think. Let's say you have a tier 5 pickaxe. You want to go into the desert zones, but you don't know which tier to go into. Now, my secret is a lot of people want to get tier 5 from a tier 4 or a tier 5 zone. But the best way is to go into a tier 6 zone. Now, you might ask me, hey yo, why the fuck would I go into one tier higher? Now, the secret comes from the resources that are there. Now, let's look at this tier 5 zone. You have ores from tier 3 to tier 5. So remember, you can gather tier 3, tier 4 and tier 5. You can gather all of it. But the highest tier of resource is the least found in this zone, so there are more tier 3s and more tier 4s than tier 5s, usually. Now in the tier 6 zone right here, you have the tier 4 to tier 6 ores. Now the secret is, you find a lot of tier 4 and tier 5 ore here, and a little bit of tier 6, but you can get tier 6, because if you're tier 5 on your pickaxe, you can gather one tier higher, but not enchantments. So most of the tier 6 you can get, and there will be plenty of tier 5 and tier 4, because the people who are dumber and go from low tier zones, the tier with their pickaxe or the matching tier, go from higher, they might get tier 6 and tier 5, but they're gonna leave tier 4 all for you, because no tier 4 gatherer goes into the tier 6 zone, and no tier 6 gatherer cares about tier 4 nodes. What you want to also keep in mind, that there are resource hotspots on the map. So for example, let's look at Flimmer Steppe, the red zone. The leather hotspot is there. You also have one in Deadvein. Let's move up, I think in Fort Sterling is where you have the ore ones. Right here in Malag you have an ore one. And you also have some other ones in the other zones. But if we go to the black zone, you can actually see that there are more of these here. So tier 8 leather resource hotspot. So there are so many of them. Like if you just go to the map right here, you have a cotton one. Let's go even further. We might find another one here. The hide one again. I mean, depends on the map again, but there are so many of them. I recommend going to one, but if it's emptied out, then don't waste your time. Just go to the open world and find some more. But I do recommend wearing gathering gear up to tier 6, I think it was, because tier 7 is just so expensive. You spend 150,000 for just this garb, and well, if you don't have spec for it, you're only gonna have 1000 item power. So a ganker basically throws 1 E on you. And half of your HP is gone. Of course it has a good escape ability, but what I recommend going with is soldier helmet, assassin jacket, and maybe royal sandals or soldier's boots. Because royal sandals can't be purged, but royal sandals also decrease your defenses a bit. Soldier boots can be purged and they stack up slowly, so usually from gankers that's not a good option to run away from. But with gathering gear, let's say you put the helmet, jacket and boots on, 1.25% for each gear piece, 12.5 after you for 5 minutes have the gear on, so it stacks up to 10 times. You're gonna have like, let's say, 36 to 38% more gathering yield, which is good. But the best thing you could do while gathering is get food. The tier 7 pork pie, it costs 5,000, it lasts 30 minutes and gives you a 15% gathering yield, and also it increases your max load. So you can gather more before going back, and for a mount, depends on how much silver you have, but for cheaper ones I would go with a stag, because it's still faster than an ox and it has more capacity to carry than a normal horse or a swift claw. Now, if you do have a little more silver, I would go with the, where is it, moose. The moose adds 374 kilograms, and also it has the speed of a swift claw, well, basically the same. So there won't be any difference, or at least noticeable difference with that, and you can easily out escape gankers if you know where to go. I do recommend taking a tier 6 bag, and the best weapon for escaping in my opinion is the double-bladed staff right here. Because the E has a line range that is pretty big, W gives you movement speed, the Q basically does a backflip and moves forward, or you can rock with the arcane staff, I think the great arcane. You can E the enemies, stun them, they're gonna get stunned for like 3 seconds. You basically use your W to cleanse yourself, get the crowd control off of you, and use your Q to bubble yourself to get immunity to CC as well. So it's a good weapon to escape from gankers, to be honest. Now if I would start gathering again, I do want to point out that there are tomes now that weren't around when I started gathering. These ones, the expert miner tome, or depending on the tier. So basically you can pay to win your way to gathering, but it takes I think like 40 books to get there. So each tier, you can get this while you're mining, so there are drops. But for example, if you want to get tier 8 by, paid winning, it's gonna cost you like 60 million for each node to get the tomes. It might be even more, I'm not exactly sure anymore. But these are really good to get. When you get these drops, I recommend to sell them, they're 265k. And if you're skinning, you also might get mob drops by killing the mobs that you skin. For example, you might get the Swift Claw Carp, that's 30k. You might get like a Stag drop, that's like 79k. Depends all on what you want to gather and what you want to do, because Albion is an online MMO sandbox. Now, I do want to point out that I'm explaining Albion in different stages of it and different kind of tutorials in like 17 plus videos, so I recommend watching my other guides. Thanks for watching for now, and I'll see you in the next one.
He spreads my cheeks and he makes me scream. He's my number one daddy, gonna make him cream inside of me. Just keep riding me. When I'm slapping him down, it's my favorite sound. He let out a little more, what a beautiful tone, so softly. Just keep riding me. So let's go talk about it. You look so sexy when your hands are wrapped around it. Flip me over, be my meter.